They told Theo Rourke that the Larchmont ring was dead. A good place to strip wire, a bad place to expect conversation. The habitat had burned in 3 places, vented in 2 more, and its remaining spokes groaned like old trees in a high wind. He could see his breath fog inside the welding hood. A thin ghost that the station's thin heat never caught. He wasn't here for conversation. He was here for copper and anything with resale numbers not yet erased by fire. He had a cart, an induction cutter, and a habit of talking to machines that pretended not to hear. Don't fight, he told a stubborn conduit. I'm meaner than I look. The conduit gave with a defeated. Theo grinned, stowed the coil, and almost missed. Not the ring's endless arthritic creak, a pulse, faint, slow, stubborn. He killed his cutter and listened, turning his head as. The pulse came again, a soft woo thumb through the deck. 1, 2, 3, pause, 1, pause. Not a mechanical rhythm. Theo followed it down a spoke with scorched signage and through a hatch that had given up the. The corridor beyond was warm in a way the ring shouldn't manage. Someone had managed power. A door marked Medbay B flickered low light. Inside, the smell hit him. Antiseptic, singed plastic, and the sweet metallic edge of recycled air. Limit. On a cot built for someone larger than human, an alien woman lay under a gray thermal throw, eyes half closed, pupils reflecting the med display. Silver. A tether ran from her wrist to a crude pump someone had printed out. Guesswork. Wasn't human. It flowed from slate to lavender between faint traceries like mercury veins, and light moved under the. Breathed. She focused on him, a beat slower than he expected, as if she was to reach him. You're late, she said in trade, accent like wind over glass. The beacon. Took hours. Beacon? Theo glanced at the wall. A jury-rigged emitter blinked weakly, its antenna a fan of braided. The panel. He recognized the signature, emergency ping built from a lot of hope. It had been kissing the void gently for someone like him to hear. You sent that? He asked. She tilted her head a fraction. No. Theo looked around. Had been stripped to its frame. Tools lay in a careful line. A cutter, 2 spanners, a bag of. All empty. Someone had triaged this room until their luck ran out. Name's Theo, he said softly. I'm human salvage. I could be worse. Her mouth tugged up at one corner. Sarai, I was in. Good at it now. The med display blinked a warning. Hypox, hypo. String of characters Theo didn't know. The shape of bad situations, though. He could read those in any language. I've got water heat tabs and adrenaline I won't use unless you're dying to make me use. Said, tell me what you need. Oxygenator is failing, said. The scrubbers here are too thin for me. And have, what is the word, degraded. They judge without listening. Theo muttered. We keep making those. He popped the oxygenators. The membrane brittle. One good breath would tear it. He could print a new one if he had and a unit that hadn't died in the fire. He had neither. Of a coil of graphene mesh, a superstition, and the kind of hands that had coaxed ship hulls back. Because he didn't like the alternative. He cut a strip of mesh, it into a honeycomb with the back of his blade, and seated it over the dying membrane. The readout climbed 1 notch. The pulse under Sarah's skin steadied by a fraction. A rough against a drum, taking a breath between. That won't last, she said. It only has to last until we make something better, he said. We're good at temporary. It's our second religion. Her gaze moved over his face with the nakedness of a person on the edge of everything. She was not beautiful in a way that invited easy language. She was beautiful like a problem that demanded respect. Who set this up? Theo asked. Not of tools, the beacon that kept kissing void. He, my aide, she said. Not hold the whole shape of her grief. He had much faith in your kind. He said if anyone could smell a broken wire across, charge us for fixing, it would be a human. He wasn't wrong, Theo said. Where is he? She looked at the. He did not ask again. The deck shivered. Through his knees and in the tight wrap of the ring struck. A camera in the corner swiveled a degree and clicked. Someone or something was watching. Custodian, Sarah murmured. The. Here? It thinks I am. Contagion. At how long you touched me with your eyes. It counts wrong. Yeah, Theo said. We keep making those too. The overhead speaker coughed to life. Voice ruined. Dozen patches. Non-resident detected. Quarantine. All 311A. Vacate. Alien. Remain. See? Sarah worked again. It does not have nuance. Theo looked at the camera and then at Sarah's wrist under the throw. Her hand was too cold under his fingertips. He left his palm there because gesture mattered, even when protocol didn't. He said to the ceiling, "You're old, you're tired, you're using a quarantine built to stop spore. This. You want to count? Count what I'm about to do." He pulled his cart closer, dug out his field interface, and clipped it in its port. The custodian tried to slap his handshake away and failed. Theo, more stubborn minds than this one, in worse places, on shorter sleep. Try to break the custodian. He didn't try to convince it was wrong. He did what humans do best, and insists on a frame that will kill. He reframed the problem. Nuke, he told it. He built a fiction with the elegance of a brick. Envoy, essential equipment for Theo Rourke's legally contracted repair operation. Removing her from the room is theft of tools punishable by, let's say, a stern letter and a power cycle. Quarantine applies to leisure contact, not tool access, see? I can touch my wrench. He touched Sarah's wrist. The custodian hesitated, a long machine second where the world held its breath. Contact, it said at last. Monitoring timer, 1 hour. Sarah breathed. Echo of the pulse under skin. You bargain like a market boy. Occupational hazard, Theo said, despite the tight band. We sell what we don't have until we do. Or to work. He printed a better membrane from the filament in his suit seam. A trick he'd learned on a tug where the printer's spool had cosplayed as empty for 2 days. He siphoned oxygen from a forgotten tank in Wreck Deck C. Through the graphene patch until the numbers on Sarah's display stopped blinking angry. He heated water in a dented kettle with a coil he wrapped with his own wire. Drinking, as if the universe might cab off if she swallowed too fast. In that hour, they spoke like people do when the window in it is closing. She told him the Envoy work had not been like Hollows. There were fewer speeches and more listening with your ribs. She told him her people hired her because she could sit a whole night with, and because she could travel long distances without writing poetry about it. Told him the ring had been neutral ground once before the war had found it slow and made it fast. Theo told her that space had eaten men better than him and spit out their boots. He told her he had been to think that meant he was lucky, and old enough now to know it meant he was careful. He told her he had heard a ship hull sing to him. He had cried because Neil had a voice. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same tool. They did not pull away sharply. They did not let it turn into any. It was a current, acknowledged and refused to name, because an hour is generous. But it is not that generous. The cut the last 5 minutes into slices. 5, 4, 3. Theo secured the oxygenator with a bracket that should have had 6 screws and made do with 3. He printed a batch that would leach sugar slow. He wrote a maintenance routine into the custodian's oldest habits, so that every batch it is oxygenator, and pretend that was its idea. 2. He took Sarah leaving, he said, and hated how true it sounded. We get practice. We get awards. I'll come back with a tank and a proper membrane. I'll bring a friend who prints anything. He owes me and I am collecting. Sarah watched him in that grave Envoy way, a gaze that put you exactly where you stood. You did not come because you planned, she said. You came because you heard a heartbeat in metal and you went toward. Your friend will come because you asked. That is a powerful name. He stood every tendon a wire. Custodian, he said. You keep her. Not because she is contagion or a wrench, but because I asked you and you said yes once today. Let's make it. A machine can't sigh. The custodian's pause felt like one anyway. Timer complete. Context extended tutelage granted. Theo. Breathless, and then it hit him like cheese. He didn't want to walk away, he did. He loaded his cart with less copper than he could, and more resolve than he'd brought in. At the door, Sarah lifted a hand under the throw, palm angled, a gesture that belonged to her people. Theo mirrored it clumsily and didn't care. Come back in 2 days, she said. If you are later, I forgive you. If you are early, I will pretend I am not glad. 2 days, he said, and I'll bill you. Charge. Double, she said, mouth bending into something like a smile. He left into the cold ring with a heart beating a little out of time and a new. When you hear a pulse in metal, he thought maybe that's what HFY meant. Under all the banners and the shouting, not that humans were the biggest or the brightest, but that when something fragile called across the dark, humans answered, and outside, Theo set a course to the nearest place with a printer that didn't lie. Owed him. Behind him, the Larchmont ring groaned and settled, and somewhere inside, an old mind learned the